everyone, and welcome to this episode of Music Bar None. Tonight's concert is actually the complete opposite from last month. The last Music Bar None was a full-out nerd attack with Fiona, Arto, and myself working our way consistently through one very unique manuscript to immerse ourselves into one specific style. But tonight, I'm basically hand-picking my favourite pieces from the 13th through to the 15th century, and I'm showcasing the soft and haunting sound of the douçaine and medieval recorder. I didn't plan to have a theme or a goal per se, but in the rehearsal yesterday, I realised that tonight's concert is actually going to be very hypnotic and meditative, and I think that has become the theme for tonight's event, because a lot of the pieces we are playing basically create sound clouds that will mesmerise the listener. So I suggest you get nice and comfy and cozy, and I'm going to welcome my two dear friends Silke and Rafa to come and join me for tonight's concert. So we are going to start with two pieces from the Bamberg Codex, which despite its very German-sounding name is actually a French, 13th century French manuscript, and it's one of the many manuscripts which document what was happening in Notre Dame in Paris in the 13th century. And that was a very interesting time when a lot of new music was happening and a lot of new developments were taking place. Now, most of the music is obviously sung and it has text, but every so often in this Bamberg Codex there's a couple of pieces which are untexted, and that's what we're going to be performing today. The first one is called In Seculum Longum. In Seculum is because that's the plain chant that is used as the basis for the piece, and longum, longer, was a name of the note value. And the second piece is In Seculum Villatoris, and that comes from vielle, which was the medieval word for fiddle. So we get a hint that possibly these pieces were actually instrumentally played, and that's of course what we're going to do today. So, enjoy. So the next two pieces we're also going to run together because they're kind of inspired by each other. The first is a Trouvère song by Guillaume de Amiens, and it's very interesting. I'll tell you why later. It's very nice, it's very simple, very nice melody. And then a bit later, somebody was inspired by this song and they put it into a 3-part monophonic piece in the Montpellier Codex. And Montpellier Codex was also a bit like Bamberg, it's kind of from the same time, a little bit more advanced, and you began to have not just sacred music, but a mix of sacred and secular. So, for instance, what it classically happens is the bottom line would be based on plain chant in long, slow notes. Then there'd be a next voice, which was a bit more elaborate, with normally a text to Maria or some saint or praising God or whatever. And then there will then be a third voice, and this was quite unique, a third voice in Old French, in the vernacular language, and often quite a secular topic, unrequited love, or maybe just someone talking about being drunk in the city of Paris, or how to like comb a goat, or how to seduce a shepherdess. It could be really like completely the opposite, but it's all in one piece. And in the one we're going to do, it's very, very interesting, because the original song says, make sure there's no one looking, and if there is, tell me. Look, over there, there's a thicket like a shrub. Make sure there's no one looking, shepherdess, charming brunette, I am yours. So I think they're going to go and have some fun. And then in the second version of the piece, the 3-part version of the piece, somebody was obviously very inspired by the text and also the melody, and they kind of expanded both. And they had a little twist. It's now, make sure no one is looking, I am a lusty lass, and there is one who is looking at me who I cannot wait to be at his side. But there's another looking at me full of jealousy. He looks at me and he loves me, but it's no good, for I shall find a secluded spot and be there with my lover. So, enjoy. That's the wrong one. And Mary. So the next piece is in a similar genre. It's also found as a two-part version in quite a few of the Notre Dame manuscripts. But in the Las Huelgas Codex, there's a three-part version. And in September, we did a whole music by none about Las Huelgas. I'll put a link below in the description box. And I remember when we did this piece, I thought it would sound so good on douçaines. So that's what we're going to do now. It's called Melis Stiller, and it's a Marian motet. So it's a beautiful song all about Mary. And to finish off this little block before the most important thing, the cocktail, we will perform still a French piece. It's like a generation later. We're now in the world of Maschino, and Maschino was, of course, like the genius of his age. He wrote so much music of such high quality, and he was really well renowned throughout his life. And we're going to perform a very nice canon. Which, if anyone doesn't know, a canon is like Frère Jacques or London Bridge, where we basically take it in turns to play the same piece, one after each other, and it creates a whole another sound universe. So, we will do that now. the most important part of the evening, where we have to clear some space for the cocktails. And in a Blue Peter fashion, we have semi-made some already. And my good friend Alec is going to come and join us to help us make the cocktails and also ask us some questions and talk about the various things. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Hi. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much.
So the cocktail today is inspired by this amazing sour cherry gin, which is made by an Italian company, Luxardo, which I used for the Las Huelgas cocktail because they make an orange liqueur called Triplum, which is the name of one of our voices. And at the same time, I happened to see on the website that they also had this very interesting looking gin, and of course, I had to buy it at the same time. And I've been waiting for a chance to use this, and now is the chance. And the token connection to what we're doing is the fact that in the Middle Ages, a lot of our instruments were made of maple wood, but also they really liked fruit wood. So you have a lot of plum instruments, and also you use a lot of cherry wood. So that's my very, very, very token excuse for using this today. So basically, you take some of this, along with some lemon and some sugar syrup. You put a little egg white in to give it some froth. You also add some ice. And then you shake a lot. No, I didn't. And now I've put it really tightly on the top. This might have to be without egg whites, because the thing with these tops is once you put them on, it's really, really hard to take them off without crushing it against the... Should we try putting it through the mesh?
Yeah, maybe. Why do I have to do this?
Because you noticed the mistake, so you have to do this. Yeah, that's not going down, is it? Okay.
A little bit.
Make it. The thing is, we practice the music, but we don't practice the cocktails.
This is live, folks.
This is yes. Wow. I think I'm going to put the lid on it and shake it and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because it's not changing, is it?
With the extra froth.
So, yes. Okay. And now, it's going to be interesting when we try and pour it.
Mm-hmm.
This is going so well. Well, thank you. Let's just put the first little bit down the sink.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, good. We can do it again afterwards. So now, I believe we're missing a glass, which is just there behind the music. Beautiful. So basically, the only thing egg white does, it doesn't add anything to the taste. It just means that it's more frothy. So this will be a slightly unfrothy cherry gin shower. But to make up for that, anyway, we had decided to add a bit of prosecco when we tasted it. We did like a little kind of trail one before. So now we have the froth. Who needs egg white? So now I can invite Rafa and Silke to come and join us for these wonderful cocktails. And Alec has some questions. So I think this was yours in a clean glass. And this was yours. So, first of all, cheers everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So good.
So good. Didn't need the egg white at all, honest.
It's yummy.
It's yummy. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. I mean, you know, alcohol, it's going to taste.
And you sweetened the lemon juice a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually did something quite fancy. I took chunks of lemons and I put them in a jar with sugar and I left it to do its business for like 2 or 3 weeks. And that basically turns into a syrup because all the liquid from the lemon dissolves naturally with the sugar.
And you can taste the lemon rind, the lemon
Yeah,
peel.
yeah, it has
Yeah.
a different
Yeah, that's cool.
taste. So.
Good.
Yeah, so.
Okay, so I have some questions for the three of you. Rafa, I'm going to start with you.
Can I just check, did we kept with the same order about instruments? We didn't decide to change or anything, did we?
We did decide to.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Carry on.
I don't know what that means, but good.
We know.
So, it's nice to see you again.
Yes.
Yes, we
Very nice.
we know each other from the Baroque overworld. Actually, the three of us.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
played many Bach cantatas and
Yes.
passions together, and here I'm seeing you in the other half of your music life, and you're playing a really weird instrument tonight.
Yes.
This douçaine. What is this? It's not a shawm. It's certainly not an oboe. What is
Well,
it?
it's not very different from a show. Like, aesthetically, it looks more or less the same, no?
Yeah.
The main difference is that the bore inside the instrument is cylindrical instead of conical.
Mm-hmm.
And this means that the instrument cannot octavize. So you don't have like a do, re, mi, fa, sol, si, do, re, mi, fa. It doesn't go like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you really press harder, it goes to the fifth like a clarinet.
Yeah.
But really sounding bad. Yeah. So it's a real instrument in the sense that you find a lot of sources where the name, the douçaine or douçaina, like different languages, or still shown in English, is written. Already, if I'm not wrong, from the beginning of the 14th century. The problem is that with these medieval things, you never have a connection between the actual instrument, the picture or the description, and the text. So we know it existed, but we don't really know exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And people can think that because it was called douçaine, it means that the sound was really sweet. But they also later on say that the cromons had a very sweet sound. Would you say it's very sweet?
Not exactly.
No, exactly. So you can see that my bell and Anne's bell, for example,
Quite
are very
different,
different because it's a kind of a fantasy reconstruction of the instrument. In a way, you can say that the inside part of the instrument can correspond to the outside, so her type of bell would be more appropriate because it's a cylindrical instrument with a cylindrical bell.
Sure.
On the other side, like this doesn't change anything. Like, you couldn't hear a real difference in sound.
Right.
And you see instruments like this in iconography, playing with lutes and harps, like with the basso cappella instruments. So it's a possibility that it was also made like this.
And is there iconography with a bell like that?
There's kind of like one picture which he took the inspiration from, no, but quite a late.
Yeah,
Quite a
it's
late
much
picture.
later, like from a Flemish painter from the 16th century.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so
And the reed?
also fantasy. I mean, it has to be big because since everything is cylindrical, like the hole here is quite big, so you need a big thing to go on top.
Yeah.
And the person who made these specific instruments, because every maker is of course free to kind of think how a douçaine should be, so now there's a few different makers making them, but this Christoph, who lives near Bâle, he made these instruments, and he was also quite inspired by the duduk, which is an Armenian folk instrument, and it has also this big reed. He was inspired by like how they made the reeds, and also because I think the duduk is also cylindrical, no?
Yeah.
So in fact these do sound a little bit similar to a duduk, but they're much easier to play. I think Silke, you've actually played some duduk, haven't you?
I'm trying since years, but
Yeah. But it's really it's a high art form to play duduk, but you can pick up this instrument and it sort of sounds very similar and is much easier, which is lucky for us.
Yeah.
That's interesting, taking inspiration from sort of folk oboes, long traditions, instruments that.
In a way, people have to do that because it's almost like it's possibly an echo from the past, which is still resonating now, and as nothing has really survived, just sort of half of one instrument. It's a good way of finding information.
How did you get into douçaine?
So I must admit, I have quite a funny story about that. Many years ago, when I was turning 30, I felt very old, and I thought the way to prove that I wasn't about to be old was I would make a medieval rock band. So I had my version of my group called Medieval Plugged, which was like half medieval and half, the percussion and drums and guitar and stuff. And I knew that this maker was making these instruments, these douçaine instruments, and I literally bought it just not even to think of playing it historically, but just to have another sound when I played in this rock band. And then it sat on the shelf for many years, and I wasn't really playing it. And then I was in Paris doing a master's in medieval music, and there was a lot of singers, and I was having to accompany singers, and the shawm is too loud and the recorder sits too high in the pitch. So I thought, I've got this kind of strange douçaine instrument, I could try it. And I realised that it fitted really well with singers, and it's nice because it's very low. This is actually like really a tenor instrument. It goes down to the C, below middle C. So you can really provide an accompanying voice for a singer, a soprano. So it's really the perfect instrument. So I started I kind of dusted it off and started playing it again.
Oh, that's really cool.
And now it's one of my favourite things to play. So.
Yeah, I mean, it does make a really, the sound cloud that it makes, the three of them together is really quite special.
Yeah.
Silke, you play shawms, and you're also a recorder player. And do you play oboe?
No.
No, okay.
I didn't go down that path.
You didn't go down that path.
That dark.
And we're also listening to a lot of recorders tonight, and these medieval recorders are, I think, quite different than what people might know from playing recorder from their school days. What can you tell us about the medieval recorders that you're playing tonight?
Well, what is the same, perhaps, is more or less the amount of holes, and how you move the fingers and that you blow inside, and that's basically all which is the same. And then the rest, there are some originals which were found in special places.
It's not like toilets.
Rotten toilets.
In fact,
or in
all the
mud.
early recorders were found in latrines and in swamps.
But then we take lots of
What does
inspiration
that
from
mean?
the...
Okay.
Maybe
We don't know why they threw it
they
there.
didn't have phones back in the day, so maybe everyone was...
Okay.
But you see several recorders in pictures, no? I mean, the recorder or the flute in general is one of the oldest instruments. You can find so many instruments made out of bones, from the legs, from the crane, this big bird. You find, I don't know, there are about 500 kind of flutes. You blow inside here, and you have 3 or 5 holes or 2 or whatever. It's one of the oldest instruments.
Yeah.
But it's kind of what they call a recorder with a thumb hole and also with a 7th hole. This starts like in the end of the 14th century, around 1400. And then you have some very nice iconography of angels playing these instruments, and they more like really look like these reconstructions from the Italian maker Francesco Li Virgi.
Duca de Paoli.
Luca di Bâle, sorry, the other one. But they have both nice ricola. So the special thing is that they are also cylindrical, which also makes the ambitus quite limited. You don't have like this big range like in a Baroque instrument where you have to play Vivaldi concerti and no, it's for playing together. They are built as a concert. They are built together, and they also have a different wind labium, which is a bit longer. The sound is a bit different. It's more, in German you would say grundständig. It's not so many overtones. It's a bit more. And the fingerings are a little bit different, but I think mostly the bore inside, and of course, nice little decorations like this. Yeah. But in general, this really straight shape.
And what kind of wood is this?
This is.
It's plum, no? Unfortunately, it's not cherry, no? I wanted it to be cherry to fit in with the cocktail.
I guess we could have lied.
But I think it's plum, no?
Yeah. I'm not sure because it's colored, I think.
Yeah. But mine are plum.
Okay.
Oh, maybe yours is maple and dyed. But
Oh,
that's why it has a different. I've been very jealous of her record because, like, we have the same set from the same maker, but hers is really shiny and really nice, and I'm quite jealous. But I think it was a different wood with the varnish, maybe. Yeah, that would make sense.
I don't recall at all when I ordered them. What happened?
So you spoke about them being in a concert, and we see that you all have several recorders here. What does that mean?
So a concert is basically like having a family of musicians. You literally have like the daddy tenor on the lower lines, and then you'd have one that was a bit bigger, and then they would just get a bit smaller, and they get smaller and smaller. So you'd have like 3 or 4 voices with a top line with a melody, and then bigger instruments lower down providing accompaniment. And what's great about these is they were really made to play together. So it's very easy to play in tune and to make the same sound. And well, I speak too soon. Wait till you hear us. But in theory, easier maybe.
But we have to remember that in the past there wasn't a pitch, like it wasn't 440 for everybody always. So like they usually had the consorts of instruments which could go later on, like with the organ of the churches, or before, just to go.
So that you knew at least that these would play together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like the makers will make them specifically to go with a certain chord or a certain.
And do you still buy them as sets together?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
Yeah. Because then the instrument maker's making them at the same time with the same wood, with the same atmosphere.
And what pitch are you playing at tonight?
5, 2, 3.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a minor third higher than normal A40.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Anne,
yes.
Or for all of you actually, I think when a lot of people don't know that much about medieval music, you might think of, I don't know, plain chant or anonymous 4 or something like that. But I think one really great thing that you do, Anne, with this concert series is you broaden the horizons of what medieval music is. And we've seen over the past year just the enormous variety of style and sound and that's possible in this very long period of time, actually. And so my stupid question is, who's your favorite medieval composer?
Yeah, that's a really, really hard one. There's like 500 years of music.
Or maybe a favorite, or maybe, I mean, if you want to get more nerdy, a favorite.
Like more
Mozart
or Mozart or NSYNC. It's the same span, no?
But I have to say, I think my favorite composer is Johannes Ciccone. We're going to play a piece of his in the second half, because he really sits on he's on the edge of music. It's like he's the beginning of the 15th century, and you can tell it's no longer this sort of 14th century, very pleasant, very organized, 4-square kind of flowing music. It begins to have a bit more spice before then settling down in the mid 15th century into doufaille and banchois.
Yeah.
It's I always often there's these moments of sort of experimentation and people pushing the boundary, and then it settles down again. And I think that's why I really like.
You like the
Chiconia. I want the experimental
No
funky
surprise
stuff.
there. What about you, Rafa?
I don't know. I think I have a special connection with the Cyprus manuscript because I don't know, like there's a lot of different things like 2-part pieces, 3-part, 4 parts, and like in very strange style, and a lot of unicum pieces. Like you don't find them anywhere else. And I also got my facsimile copy for my wedding.
Well, that's so historical because people used to give manuscripts as presents at weddings.
There you go. Yeah. When is this manuscript from?
Like
Beginning of the 15th century as well, no, I think.
yes,
Yeah.
or the late 14th
It captures repertoire of the
From
end of the
the
14th, but then
14th
it's...
century, yeah. Okay. What about you, Silke?
Well, I like Sir Anonymous, of course, because he lived quite a long time. No, there's a special genre of estampis and estampite, which are really famous because it's the instrumental music from the medieval times. And because the biggest part of the repertoire is actually vocal, and there's only 2, 3, 4 manuscripts where we know there's no text. It is really written for instruments. And it's very different from all the vocal repertoire. It's normally you have lots of notes in the Italian estampite and really complicated structure, and especially by playing by heart them and trying to remember them, that brings you in a crazy world of meditation style, but in a wild way. So this is interesting. But from the vocal part, I would say Maschino and Lescurel. Lescurel is like perhaps one generation before Maschino, and he has these very beautiful little written out embellishments where you sometimes wonder, okay, how can you do an embellishment? Well, you can check Lescurel because he writes them down. And it's so nice to
No, it's super helpful.
trying to imitate them, and he's an instrumentalist.
Yeah.
So I said 3 now. Sorry.
No, really good answers. Really good answers. And one final question before we get back to the music. So it's, we're here, this is your concept, and when you start off a project, you don't really know how it's going to end up and how it's going to develop. How is it going compared to how you originally planned?
I think it's going really... I'm kind of amazed it's still going. It's like we're now in the 3rd season.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I really like the rhythm once a month meeting with friends behind the bar making music, but also on the other side of the bar I have really wonderful people sitting in front of me, dear friends who've come to share this experience, and I feel like it's getting better and better, and now Mark is here looking after all the technical side and creating all the beautiful images and text that you're seeing, and he's made it look really beautiful today. It's a really warm light, and I feel it's going from strength to strength, and I'm very, very happy.
Super.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for answering my questions, and we're looking forward to the second part.
Yeah, me too. Now I'm drunk. It's going to be very interesting.
That's a tough one for you, no? After the cocktail.
There's a lot of fast notes in this one.
I'm only tenor, which is always the nicest voice actually, but more relaxed than yours.
Let's see what happens. Actually, I forgot to say that piece kind of was meant to mirror the piece before the cocktail. It's also a canon, but it was we're now basically in Italy for the second half, all Italian-based music, and that was a caccia, which is the same principle. Like I was starting, and she was also always playing the same music, but behind me. So we had a French canon before the cocktails and an Italian caccia after the cocktail. And now we're doing Chiconia, my favourite composer. So this is a really, really beautiful piece called O Rosabella by Chiconia. And I'm going to dedicate this to a friend of mine, Ariana Prosner, because I started my group Mediva back when I was 20, living in London, being a music student, and Ariana was the singer in the group, and she had a beautiful, rich, velvety voice, and it was really wonderful to work with her. And then we sort of lost contact because I came to Bâle and started studying. She moved to Barcelona. The group evolved and changed, and so we didn't really see each other. And I actually just found out that she's recently died. And O Rosabella was one of our kind of key important pieces in the repertoire that we had, and her, I can really always picture her deep, beautiful, rich voice singing this piece. So we'll do it now tonight, and I will feel her singing along with us. Now, Ciccone was actually very sensible because he was born in Belgium, in Liège, but he spent most of his life living and working in Italy, which I think is very, very, very sensible. And the next composer we're going to also do a piece by Dufay, and he had the same really genius idea. So, and maybe just one thing, this next piece by Dufay, like we spoke about consorts before, and the key thing is that you had sort of the same instrument but in different sizes, and that really reflected the music that was being written at the time. But very occasionally the composer wanted to mix things up, and in fact this piece, instead of being written for the classic cantus, contratenor and tenor, which is kind of like a pyramid, you have a cantus playing the melody and the tenor and the contratenor playing the sort of mixing up the bass line between them. This is actually written for a primus, a secundus, and a tertius. They're all the same range, so we're actually playing all the same size of recorder, and the voices really create a sound cloud in this way. sadly, or happily, we're almost at the end. We've just got one more piece. We're going to do a piece by Dunstable, who was an English composer, kind of a contemporary with Dufay. And in fact, he was English, and he didn't have the great idea. He didn't go and live in Italy. Maybe Brexit had already happened. And but very interestingly, the main source of music that we have for him is in a manuscript connected to Ferrara and the chapel in Ferrara. And there's the final kind of quarter of this manuscript is always like, it's just piece after a piece of Dunstable and other English composers. And it's kind of a bit strange. And there's a theory that like the university was very famous in Ferrara. And there's a theory that a bunch of English students had gone over and were studying there, and they brought with them a lot of the repertoire that was going on in England and also introduced it to the court in Ferrara. And obviously somebody liked it and added it to this manuscript. So it's a really beautiful piece, and I like to have the idea of it being like resonating around the walls of this chapel in the court palace in Ferrara. course, really like to say many thank you. Really, Silke and Rafa, we all do this from the generosity of our hearts because we love each other and we love playing together. So I'm really grateful that you come and spend this evening playing with us. I'd also like to thank Mark for all the genius stuff that you do and keeping me sane. And I really want to thank you guys for coming along and watching, and looking forward to drinking with you all afterwards. And also thank you if you're watching it at home. It's really great. I'm going to practice my YouTube speak, which is, if you have enjoyed it, feel free to give it a like, leave a comment, and maybe even subscribe. I still need to get to 1,000 subscribers before I can do anything interesting on YouTube. So you never know. And we're just going to finish off with one final little piece, one final sound cloud on the douçaine. And you need some music. Do we manage this? Which do you prefer? They have a choice. Either they can read this, which I sprang on them this afternoon. I was like, yeah, you know this piece, don't you? Yeah, you can sight read this. Or like a crazy small modern version.
And we had one cocktail before starting, so it's 2 cocktails now. And
but I think it's in D, no?
yes.
I'll start and see what happens.
Just do anything in D. You start.